was standing ready. Lord, please, I could take a guess. Oh, would you please? We are ready. I'm lifted by the spirits of peace. I guess we're never going home. Never journey sunshine. Could never be alone. Well, I guess I'm well adjusted, but the pains they never leave, except for my feet. I keep my arms in my suitcases and my shoulders halfway down to the ground.
Hello, humans. Welcome back to the Slackline Quote of the Day broadcast. You are here with the boss.
The boss is coming!
That's a made-up dumb fairy tale name, you
Happy Throwback Thursday, everybody. And we are chatting some quotes of the day, getting some dives into them and seeing how they can apply to our social structure around us now. We are coming at you from Vancouver, Canada. Another cloudy day here, and we're just getting through the last bit of winter here to try and get to what is generally a beautiful summer in this fine city. And we are coming at you today thanks to Prick Buds wireless headphones. Headphones that not only give you the crystal clear music quality you crave, they filter out 99% of assholery. Those are Prick Buds. When they are silent, when you're not hearing music, they filter out any of the douchebags around you. Just be deaf to them. And it goes along with our quote today, coming at us from Canadian author Robert J. Sawyer. Learning to ignore things is one of the great paths to inner peace. That again, Robert J. Sawyer. This one today, it made me think because I kind of both agree and disagree with it. I immediately kind of related it to bullying as soon as I read it. I was kind of bullied as a child. I wouldn't say like overly so. Some of the stuff I've heard from other people about being like shoved into like lockers and like swirlies and that type of thing. No, but I was a chunky kid, and being a chunky kid, you got made fun of for being fat. Especially if you're into athletics. Kids are tended to be pretty vicious about that on sports teams and stuff. So, yeah, I mean that's something that really stuck with me from when I was a kid and even now into adulthood. It's something that's in the back of my mind. Like, oh, he's fat, what he says doesn't matter. Like, I actually heard somebody say that to me once, and you're kind of like, oh, all right. And it used to make me, like, rage, like, really, really rage, get really upset. And, probably comedically so when thinking about it from the other side. And, it just fed the people more, they just kept poking at it because, they would laugh at how upset you would get. So probably by the time I was 13, 14, I just learned to ignore it. And just kind of like, brush it off as whatever. Those people, they're jerks and you don't have to listen to jerks. And I mean, I had friends and stuff too, so like I wasn't an unpopular kid necessarily, so it was pretty easy for me to just focus on the people that liked me and that type of thing. But I mean, it can be hard to do that when you're kind of forced to deal with real pain, like many people are, either physical pain or like real damaging psychological pain. it can be hard to, keep calm and keep to yourself. And it can be argued that you shouldn't. I mean, the other side of this is that like it makes a difference to stand up for yourself and for others. Maybe ignoring it isn't the best way. If you ignore like suffering of other people or yourself, like how can you have peace within yourself? Because if you watch somebody get bullied and don't do anything about it when you could, don't say anything about it when you could, I mean, those types of things can eat at you. I remember like, a few times actually bullying kids myself, and like even to this day it makes me kind of sick. And if I saw those people again, I'd like to apologize. And actually once I did. And people forgive you for those things, especially like a few years later. I mean, if it wasn't too bad, like, you call somebody a bad name or something, or say somebody's a loser or whatever. It's pretty easy to forgive those types of things versus actual abuse. But if you do those things in those moments, it can relieve a lot of peace, or it can relieve a lot of pain for a person being bullied, and it can give you a lot of inner peace that you stood up and did the right thing. I know even like when I have been like in any situation, speaking my mind about something that's on my mind, something that's making me upset, it always makes you feel better to verbalize that to the people that are involved in it. Kind of regardless how it makes them feel. And that's, maybe that's a little selfish to look at it that way, but I mean, you have to be selfish sometimes, especially with the way that something's making you feel. And like, especially when we're getting into like the realm of like bullying and stuff like that, it's definitely not selfish to be standing up for yourself and putting back in somebody else's face how you feel. But it does kind of become part of a groupthink issue when people think it's it's funny or it's cool to pick on this one person for whatever reason. I was watching actually a thing with John Green, one of my favorite people, just an interview with him about bullying, and he was saying how he used to get stuffed into garbage cans and used to get like pulled up by limb by like 4 different people and like just laughed at and called names and you name it, and how dehumanizing it was for him, and how it made him how like the fear before it would happen was just this terrible feeling, and how this even one semi-popular kid kind of just saying, wait, like, he's a loser, but we don't have to like beat him up. We don't have to like be assholes to him. And, just the one person in this group of like 5 or 6 people suggesting that maybe this isn't cool, changed his life, in a very strange way. And so, yeah, like I think it's important when even if you're participating in something that starts to feel wrong, that you say something about it. So it's tough to say something like ignoring things is a great path to inner peace. It could be argued that the exact opposite is true. That letting people know how you feel and expressing truth is the way to inner peace. That might not be the way to outer peace. It might not be the way to peace with relationships or with the people around you, because a lot of people honestly don't like to necessarily hear the truth about themselves or about anything. And like I think I can safely say that none of us are really 100% honest with people. Even though we'd like to idealize that type of idea, I don't think any of us want everybody to be 100% honest with us all the time. I like to think that I do, but I'm sure there are things that I'd rather not know, and just I probably wouldn't know what that is until finding something like that out. But certain things are maybe left in blissful ignorance. But I would argue that most is not. Most stuff should be aired out. Most stuff should be spoken between people. Because all it does is build unnecessary tension between people. When you don't voice yourself, you can't have an open discussion or whatever about what an actual problem is. And tensions just rise because both parties don't think the other party understands them. And that's more applicable to adult relationships, right? Like, you can't really do that with a kid who has his own problems and they're raging, they have their own outlet. And that's something that John Green said too, was that he had to realize, like, once he realized that it wasn't about him, that it wasn't him who was actually a loser, that it was that this guy, this kid, this bully has their own issues and is expressing it in this way against him, and that doesn't justify what they do, but it at least helps the person understand that they're not actually what this person says they are. They are not defined by this person. They are, whatever they choose to be, and this bully, can call them whatever they want. That doesn't make it true. And that's an admirable path to take at that level. But when you're talking about, again, physical abuse, people should be standing up for each other in that scenario. I think that is a trending thing amongst kids, as far as, being much more anti-bully than being pro-bully. I feel like that's kind of where the crux of my high school experience happened. Was like, I was probably like 14, 15 when it became like not okay to bully people, and like not cool to bully people, and not cool to say certain words and stuff like that. And that's great. And I noticed it when I was coaching that, kids that are now like 13, 14, 15, they get it and they jump on bullying, and they don't really stand for it as much. Not that there's not bullying, like there definitely is, but I just noticed more of a trend against it than I do for it. But maybe that's wrong. There has to be that, I think, at the child level too, but especially at the adult level, I think there has to be, a standing up for yourself and standing up for each other. We see that with like the sexual abuse scandal that's going on, but also, any sort of disrespect that you are getting in your adult life. I don't know. Some people might argue that it's not worth it to cause trouble over something that's not going to change somebody anyways. And I think there is truth to that sometimes. But in that case, you kind of have to either remove yourself from the situation, I think. If you're going to ignore somebody like that, like a boss who is, berating you or whatever, or, a spouse that you, I'm not even talking necessarily abuse, but just bullying, not even a spouse, like a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Any types of bullies in your life, if your choice is to ignore them, you have to ignore and avoid, I think. Which is a difficult thing to do when they're people that are tied into your life. And so as we become adults, people kind of get tied more into our lives, as far as like work colleagues and friends and friends of friends, and parents of the friends of our kids, and those types of relationships. People that see each other day after day after day, you have to air it out, I think. And if that means that people like don't like each other because they don't like where each other stand, I think that's a better scenario than rising tensions and backhanded shots and the potential rise of like a bully scenario where somebody's getting belittled and not having their voice heard. Like as an adult, at a point you have, especially as an adult, at a point you have to stand up for yourself. But I think in that scenario, we can use the quote from yesterday to ignore anger and frustration. But I think in that scenario, we can use the quote to ignore anger and frustration more than ignoring the situation. And logic people, like we talked about yesterday with the quote about, a tactical retreat as a response to a surprise attack. Those types of mentalities can be, maybe combined there in an adult way, that kids can't really do. Kids are very much still instinctual, and you either get really upset or you clam up. And some people are able to just be like cool about it, even as kids. And I'm not really sure where that comes from. Maybe it's a genetic thing. Maybe it's how their parents treated them that that turned them out that way. Or maybe it's a combination of those things, which it probably is. And I just wanted to touch it on to meditation, because we did talk about Buddha, last week, and I think that this idea of ignoring things is kind of what meditation is, right? You're sitting there and you're putting things out of your mind, and you're trying to reach an inner peace. So in that type of sense, maybe like that is kind of a path to inner peace. But again, as we kind of break it down into different social structures and that type of thing, and when it's appropriate to ignore and when it's appropriate to stand up for yourself, it definitely gets more complicated. So maybe we'll leave it there for today. That quote again is, learning to ignore things is one of the great paths to inner peace. That is from Robert J. Sawyer, a Canadian author, a science fiction writer. And it is brought to us again by Prick Buds, wireless headphones that not only give you crystal clear music quality, they filter out 99.9% of assholery, guaranteed to leave you deaf to all of the idiots around you. Those are Prick Buds. Thanks again to Crooked Spies and Axel Boss today for providing the intros and outros. And thanks to anybody who's listening. You can follow the Slackline on Instagram at the.slack.line, on Twitter at slackline_radio, and on YouTube at the Slackline Podcast. You have been listening to The Boss.
The boss is coming! That's a made-up dumb fairy tale name, you.
This has been the quote of the day. We will see you tomorrow for Friday. And bye for now.
Oh, high time.